Okay, everybody take their seats. We're going to get started. I hope everybody had a nice coffee break. Yes? Feel a bit more relaxed. Ready for the next panel, I hope? Okay, great. So, my name is Gabriela Agatiello. I'm the project manager for the Quality Sponsorship Network, for the Share Network and ICMC Europe. Today I'm going to be moderating panel 2, which is on multi-stakeholder engagement in community sponsorship. This panel will have civil society partners who are implementing community sponsorship program talk about how they coordinate the programs on a regional level, how they engage with local authorities and regional authorities to implement their community sponsorship programs in Ireland, the UK, and we'll also have example from Germany. And then we will also have our colleague José de Lamo from Valencia, who will talk about the regional sponsorship program in Valencia. So maybe I will just first give you a brief overview of who the panelists are, and then we'll get started. It will be a kind of a Q&A panel. So in the first round of questions, each of the panelists will give you an overview of the programs in their respective countries. And then we'll talk a little bit more about how regional coordination works in their respective programs. So to my left, we have José de Lamo. He's the General Director on Equality and Diversity for the Valencia government. And as I said, he will talk about regional government involvement and sponsorship. Then beside him, we have Rory O'Neill. He's actually one of the partners in Share QSN, and he's the Integration Projects Manager and Community Sponsorship Lead for the Irish Refugee Council. Then we have Susanna Baker from the UK, and she's the founder of the Pickwell Foundation. And she will explain a little bit more about what the foundation is about. And then on my right, I have our other Share QSN partner, who's actually not in your program, but Stefan Leo Joyce. He was a last-minute addition, and he's from the Archdiocese of Cologne, also a QSN partner, and he will be talking a little bit about the NEST community sponsorship program in Germany, and then introducing a video by Stephen Neher, who's the mayor of Rottenburg in Germany, who unfortunately couldn't be here in person. So that's to give you an overview. So with that, we'll get started. So first, we'll start with José. I will speak to you in Spanish, José. Entonces, José, para empezar, ¿nos podrías explicar en breve el programa de Patrocinio Comunitario en Valencia, los actores involucrados, cuántos refugiados han acogido, más o menos darnos una breve explicación de la estructura y cómo funciona el programa?
Bueno, gracias. Gabriela, buenos días. Good morning, everyone. Buen día. Y bueno, en primer lugar, agradecer al Gobierno vasco, a la red SER por invitarnos a poder participar y poder compartir y poder seguir aprendiendo en esta experiencia que es un continuo aprendizaje, y creo que la mesa anterior ya lo hemos visto, lo vimos ayer con el grupo local. Y bueno, no voy a contar cosas muy diferentes de lo que pueden contar Xavier y Patricia, pero bueno, para también ver un poco cuál es el contexto valenciano, ¿no? Ahí, igual que en el País Vasco, en Euskadi, ¿no?, le han puesto el nombre de Auzolana, nosotros quisimos también rebautizar el patrocinio comunitario con el nombre de Agermanament Comunitari Valencià, Agermanament, que es hermanamiento, y que además en Valencia tiene como un sentido un poco más de eso, de la hermandad, de la Agermanor, de la comunidad, ¿no? Y pensábamos que ese nombre también definía muy bien lo que queríamos o lo que pensábamos que iba a ser el patrocinio comunitario. Allí hicimos una experiencia piloto, estamos en ella todavía, que empezó en octubre del 2020 y que acabará en octubre del 2022, quedando 2 familias que acabarán un poquito antes, porque afortunadamente han llegado ya a a un nivel de autonomía en el que ya se considera que el programa debe de acabar ya. También en un contexto complicado, ¿vale?, que es la pandemia de la COVID y en una situación de un poco prisa a la hora de gestionar el inicio, porque se acabó el primer confinamiento, bueno, primer y último, que luego no hubo más como tales, y con el miedo a un segundo confinamiento, y como llegaba un vuelo en el mes de septiembre de reasentamiento, se precipitó, ¿no? Se quiso que en ese vuelo ya vinieran las familias de patrocinio, por miedo, como digo, a no poder hacerlo más adelante, ¿no? Y eso precipitó un inicio, bueno, yo creo que un poco accidentado, y que sumado, ¿no?, a una cuestión que se ha hablado ya antes, del tema de la necesidad de la información en origen, y yo añadiría también de una mayor preparación de los grupos locales, pues tuvimos un inicio un poco más complejo, ¿no? Esto no sé si va. No me va esto. Ah, vale. Perdón. Bueno, el contexto más o menos es similar, es igual. Como ya sabéis, el Gobierno de España es que tiene la competencia en la acogida de personas refugiadas, por lo tanto, es la institución que nos cede la competencia a través de un convenio para poder desarrollar este proyecto. El ACNUR es quien nos invita y quien nos incita a sumarnos a la experiencia piloto en el verano del 2019, si no recuerdo mal, del 2019, sí. Ya, ¿no?, iniciado, ¿no?, aquí en Euskadi, ¿no?, el primer proyecto y nos ponemos a trabajar en ello. Y bueno, también de manera similar a como se ha hecho en Euskadi y en Navarra, bueno, las entidades con las que trabajamos es el Servicio Jesuita de Migrantes y las diferentes caritas diocesanas, ¿vale?, a las cuales invitamos a participar y que se suman enseguida a la propuesta, y por tanto pues ahí tenemos y a la Generalitat Valenciana como la administración que asume pues la coordinación, el liderazgo de poner en marcha el patrocinio comunitario en la Comunidad Valenciana. Ahí tenemos a 5 familias en 5 municipios diferentes, y yo creo que también esto nos va a dar aprendizajes sobre, bueno, cuáles son las características de los municipios y quizás el match, ¿no?, entre familias y municipios que pueda haber para que el programa funcione un poquito mejor, ¿no? Una familia que está en Alacuás, que es un municipio, una ciudad mediana de unos 30.000 habitantes, que está en el entorno metropolitano de la capital de la región, que es Valencia, que tiene 800.000 habitantes. Una familia de 5 personas, madre, padre, 2 hijos y una hija, ¿no? Bueno, ahora, luego veremos al final a la hija en una noticia de hace poquito. En Almasora, que es un municipio también de la zona metropolitana, pero de Castellón, que es otra capital regional, en este caso de la provincia del norte, de menos habitantes, y bueno, también un entorno más pequeñito, ¿no?, que el de Alacuás, pero también Almasora, también con unos 25.000 habitantes, ¿no?, ciudades más o menos medianas. También hay una familia de madre y padre con 3 niñas más pequeñitas. Una tercera familia en el municipio de Calpe, que es una ciudad mediana, también de unos 30.000 habitantes, pero que en verano supera los 150.000, y eso también tiene unas dificultades, entre otras cosas también por el tema de la vivienda, como os hablaba antes, pero también otras cuestiones. Y también la familia de 5 personas ahora, mamá y papá, y 2 niños y una niña que llegó ya, que se fabricó cuando llegaron a España y que nació ya aquí. Una familia en Cocentaina con 4 personas, de mamá, papá y 2 hijos. Una ciudad pequeña de interior de 10.000 habitantes, de montaña, y Valencia capital, ¿vale? Una familia que eran 5, como luego os he comentado antes también los cambios de las familias, y ahora son 4 porque hubo una separación y el padre salió del programa a los 4 meses por una petición tanto de la mujer como de los hijos y hijas que apoyaban la separación, ¿no? Como veis, pues hay cambios familiares, lo comentaba antes, creo que era Patricia, ¿no? Bueno, una coordinación, ¿vale?, por parte de la Generalitat con las entidades, reuniones quincenales durante los primeros 3 meses aproximadamente, y después unas reuniones mensuales, y después una comisión de seguimiento semestral con todas las entidades involucradas y un encuentro anual. Veremos luego el último que hicimos, donde se convoca pues, a las diferentes instituciones, a las familias, a los grupos locales, para encontrarse y también pues, para hacer un poco de seguimiento, y en este caso, por ejemplo, la que hicimos hace semana y media, pues también para comenzar la evaluación del proyecto, que consideramos fundamental. 4 pinceladas, que son cosas que ya se ha comentado, yo creo que vamos coincidiendo, yo creo que también eso refuerza un poco, ¿no?, esas conclusiones, aunque luego entiendo que iremos pudiendo concretar algunas de ellas, ¿no? La mejora de la preparación previa, se ha hablado antes y que no voy a insistir en ello. Una mayor implicación de los municipios, quizás también especialmente en la búsqueda de vivienda o en la aportación de una vivienda. Un aprendizaje, quiero agradecer también al Gobierno vasco, que en cuanto nos fuimos adelante con el proyecto, nos vinimos aquí, a Vitoria, un día a reunirnos, a que nos contaran el programa y nos dijeron, fundamental durante los primeros meses la figura de traductora mediadora. La introdujimos y la verdad es que ha sido un acierto, uno de los grandes puntos fuertes del programa. Además, en los casos donde esa persona también era de origen sirio, mucho mejor, por cuestiones culturales, acabo. Y, en principio, nuestra experiencia es mejor municipios medianos o incluso el más pequeño, ¿vale? La situación en grandes ciudades, al menos en nuestra experiencia, dificulta un proceso como el patrocinio, donde las distancias son más grandes, donde al menos igual no hemos encontrado el barrio idóneo, pero que los municipios en general más pequeños, no el turístico, por las dificultades también que tiene de más movimiento durante muchos meses, ha funcionado mejor también por la implicación de los municipios que se ha dado de forma natural, sin forzarla. Y hasta aquí puedo leer por ahora.
Muchas gracias, José. Very interesting.
Ay, perdón, un segundo. Se me ha olvidado. Bueno, esto es una noticia y ya está, que salió después del encuentro que hicimos el otro día, hace unas semanas. Esa foto es las fotos de las familias en el grupo de evaluación. Y bueno, el titular es de una adolescente que se graduó ya en la educación secundaria y que nos hizo un speech brutal en aquel momento de una mujer ya empoderada y que sabe muy bien lo que quiere, como veréis ahí, que se gradúa y que quiere estudiar medicina. Y creo que también era un poco para nosotras, yo creo que era como un momento de satisfacción de ver que en menos de 2 años, ¿no?, el futuro que esta chavala ha visto en su vida, ¿no? Y creo que es un punto fuerte, que no todos son dificultades, sino que a veces también encontramos estas historias tan fantásticas. Ahora sí, gracias.
Perfecto, muchas gracias. So now we're going to turn our attention to the UK, where we have a foundation, actually, the Pickwell Foundation, who is doing a lot of coordination at the regional level. And Susanna is going to talk and give an overview of how they do that.
Thank you. So I am Susanna, thank you. It's a real privilege to be here with you all today. I'm from the Pickwell Foundation. I'm one of the founding trustees of the Pickwell Foundation. We are 2 families who are based in the southwest of England and in a county called Devon. They say Devon is heaven. It's by the sea. It's very lovely, famous for surfing where we live. We're lifelong friends and we had shared values and we just wanted to make a difference. The foundation is named after a house that we bought together called Pickwell Manor, and we lived in that house together for 10 years. We ran a business from the house, a hospitality business, so I don't know if you can make the house out behind the words, but it's a big, wonderful house, but we just had 2 little apartments inside it, and the rest was our business. And we raised our children there together. We set up the foundation to give away profits from our shared businesses in hospitality, renewable energy and social housing. Our social houses are mostly in the southwest of the UK and nearly all of them house refugees. If they don't house refugees, then they're for social good. And some of those houses are given to the community sponsorship scheme to help support where there is a lack of housing. Our foundation works in 2 areas, displaced people and climate change. I am the lead on the refugee resettlement, and we currently are responsible for over 40 refugees from mostly Syria and over 200 from Ukraine. And the Ukraine, we are also supporting 67 sponsor households who are the households sponsoring people from Ukraine. So where is Devon? So there's Devon right at the bottom there in the southwest. So currently, with the statistics in the UK, the UK launched the community sponsorship scheme back in 2016, and that's when we got involved ourselves. But currently, across the UK, there are 750 refugees across 150 groups. The main actors that are involved are the government, who set the terms, local authorities, who kind of, actually I'll talk more about them in a minute, Reset, who is the training partner for all of the groups, principal sponsors who are like me and also like Hannah's organisation who's here, who you'll meet later, Citizens UK, who are sponsors who sponsor multiple groups, so more than 2 or 3 groups. We are called principal sponsors. And then we have lead sponsors who maybe sponsor one group here, and that's it. There's also the Community Sponsorship Alliance UK, which is a fairly new entity, which Hannah and I co-chair on, and it's basically a cross-section of lots of people involved in community sponsorship. So mostly principal sponsors, but also lead sponsors, people that are brand new to community sponsorship, and most importantly, people with lived experience are represented well on our alliance. And we want this body to be a real listening ear for the whole sector in community sponsorship, to be able to hear what people want, what do we need to be campaigning about, what do we need to create action about, and then enabling that to happen by coming as one joint voice. In order to do community sponsorship in the UK, you have to be a registered charity or set up a community interest company. You also need to have a letter of approval from your local authority. The scheme, as you can see from the numbers, is really slow and really bureaucratic, and there's a few reasons for that. But at the same time, I feel really passionate about this scheme because I think it's got some really magical components to it, which is what keeps us involved. We at Pickwell started working with the scheme, as I said, in 2016 when it was launched by the government. We have 7 families under us. In fact, one arrived just yesterday. I was a bit distracted on my phone all day, into northern Devon and seeded across, and we've seeded lots more groups across the country. Most people in my family or my friends now are part of a community sponsorship group. Our aim as the Pickwell Foundation, we have a map on the wall, and our aim is to go to every village and every town across northern Devon and have a family in that place. We work both locally, but we also work nationally as we're part of the Principal Sponsors Network, and we are therefore called upon with other principal sponsors to often be involved in government meetings, advisory panels, and asking advice about how to grow the scheme, how can we make our applications better. And the most important thing to say is that the first person who I employed to work with me on this scheme, on the community sponsorship side of what we do, is Khadija. And Khadija arrived from Syria in our first family back in 2017. And she's the core part of what we do, the core person whose advice we listen to and who is a part of our team. Lastly, this is our region in detail. So there are 2 districts, North Devon and Torridge, and they are managed by 2 very different local authorities that we have to navigate between. And we work with 3 government refugee schemes. We work with the Community Sponsorship Scheme, the Afghan schemes, of which there are 2, and the Homes for Ukraine scheme. That's me done.
Thank you very much for that very, very good overview. I picked up on a few things that you said that maybe we can come back to also in terms of coordination, the Community Sponsorship Alliance, where you tried to bring all these different actors together, which I think is very interesting. And the role that Reset plays as a training partner for across across the UK. I thought that was really interesting, and what you said about Khadija and how you're trying to use refugee advisors in your programs to advise how the program develops. So now we're going to turn our attention to Ireland, to my colleague Rory O'Neill from the Irish Refugee Council, who will give an overview of their program.
Hello, and thank you very much for the invite, and thank you to the Basque Government for hosting us here. So community sponsorship was set up as a pilot project from 27 onwards. The Canadian Government and the Global Refugee Sponsorship Initiative were very supportive in setting it up. It was set up as complementary to Ireland's resettlement figures. That's something we're trying to change as well, and to make it additionality, and to look at the idea of nomination rights as well. It's something we can talk about later. As a pilot project, it had great support from the Irish government. They really wanted to do this programme, and the minister at the time was very supportive of it. So the initial programme was designed in collaboration with UNHCR, the Irish government, and then what's now 4 regional support organisations. So Ireland, though it's a small country, there's 4 organisations like the Refugee Council, the Irish Red Cross, and then 2 regional organisations called Doris, Lumley and Nask, and they're based in the south of the country. So within that, above the regional support organisations is what's called a national support organisation that is made up of the 4 regional support organisations and outside stakeholders that provide support, along with UNHCR, academic support and other agencies that are feed into it as well. And that was very much responsible for designing the programme, setting the framework and governance, and the ongoing monitoring and evaluation of it. So the responsibility of the regional support organisations is to recruit community sponsorship groups. So like Pádraig was talking about earlier on, they were the first group that came to us that wanted to be a community sponsorship group. So we'd spent, amongst all the regional support organisations, designing the framework for training, which was very imperative. We tried to align it with the pre-departure training that was given by IOM in Lebanon and Jordan. So the Irish government just bring in people, Syrians, it was set up for Syrians coming from Lebanon and Jordan. So the training, the pre-arrival and post-arrival training, we tried to incorporate that into the training that we gave the groups. That's been quite difficult, no disrespect to IOM, but the ability to, I suppose, fully understand the pre-departure training when it's not delivered by people from Ireland is quite difficult. We've designed pre-departure training ourselves, and we're trying to implement that. And before when a family is selected, the groups will get a chance to meet them, and us as regional support organisations will start communicating with them around what they're entering into. As Pádraig mentioned earlier on, it took a long time for the family they welcomed to actually fully understand what the programme was they were in. People fleeing from duress will agree to anything, and then it takes a while for them to actually realise what the situation they're in, what the community sponsorship group are there for. It took that particular family a while to actually realise that the group were volunteers, that they had sourced housing specifically for them and had fundraised and also committed to a suite of training as well. So when they fully realised that they were more understanding of what had been done for them, and the idea of reciprocity was engendered, which is, I suppose, one of the key pieces to community sponsorship as well, that the groups invariably receive more than the hosted families do by the idea of giving, and they can see a return very quickly on what they do as well. One of the key pieces of training is managing expectations across all the stakeholders and managing boundaries within that. So that's what our training is predicated around. Again, there's various aspects to that, looking at unconscious bias, looking at culture awareness, and looking at the similarities between cultures, and that's always the starting point of getting groups to understand Arab culture or Syrian culture. It has very much evolved. All the regional support organisations would naturally collaborate already on existing work around the asylum process in Ireland and advocacy around that. So when the Afghan situation arose last summer, they responded very quickly and started using community sponsorship as a vehicle for bringing Afghans to Ireland, but also in supporting their integration as well. And the same thing has established now with the response to Ukraine. A lot of the community sponsorship groups, and like Porix as well, have reformed or kind of invented themselves to support Ukrainians. And it's nice to see that the Syrian family that they've welcomed are now helping and welcoming the Ukrainian family to the town as well. So again, that reciprocity becomes circular as well, and gives a lot more, I suppose, impact, and shows that the work that's put into supporting a family has benevolence as well, and it creates that benevolence. So it's very hard to calculate the actual numbers that have been supported through community sponsorship, because it's very much, as I said, adapted for the Ukraine and Afghan response. And it's trying to use the learning and I suppose the connections across all the communities, the peer support, to actually give a proper cohesive response to the Ukraine need as well. It's very much a partnership between the state and civil society. The regional support organisations sit there to mediate that space between civil society and the government and all the other state actors that are involved with it. Ireland is slightly different than a lot of the other jurisdictions in that the local authority don't really have a significant role, or they're not a gatekeeper to it actually happening. Unlike the UK, where the Home Office and the local authority have to sanction it, it's very much down to the community groups and the regional support organisations to give authority for them to actually welcome a family. Like all other jurisdictions, housing is the biggest problem. Once a group can secure housing, they will invariably welcome a family. Because of COVID and some of the dysfunctionality within Lebanon, it's becoming very difficult to get refugees out of there at the moment. So some of the community sponsorship groups have started working with Afghans that have come in and are in state-supported accommodation as well. So it's been very adaptable. I'm getting a nod here to finish up. So anybody who's got other questions afterwards, please feel free to ask. There's quite a range to this, but just to say that it's a very collaborative project between the state and civil society. Thank you.
Thank you, Rory. Very interesting, how you were describing the role of the regional support organizations and how they coordinate with each other, divided into these 7 different areas, and at the same time coordinated by a national support organization. This is something that's very interesting about the program in Ireland, which we see a little bit in the UK, but not in the same way. So now we're going to turn our attention to Germany. My colleague Stefan will, from the DICV in Germany in Cologne, will give an overview of the NEST community sponsorship program there and some of the main actors involved. And then after he's finished, we're going to show a short video from Stefan Neher, who is the mayor of Rottenburg in Germany, and he's going to talk a little bit about how they engage as a municipality with the NEST program. So over to you, Stefan.
Okay, thank you, Gabriela, and thank you everyone for organizing this conference. So, my name is Stefan Leo Joyce. I work for the Diocesan Caritas Association for the Archdiocese of Cologne. Okay, perfect, thank you. So, there we go. The German program, the German resettlement program, which is a complementary pathway, which started in 2019, is called New Start in the Team. So why the name New Start in the Team? So the team refers to a group of at least 5 people who will commit themselves for 2 years to support the refugees who will come through the program. They will support them by providing the money for their accommodation for 2 years. So they have to be collecting the money in advance, and they have to show that they have the money to actually help them. And we also call it, and the second part of their involvement is ideal help. So they will just help them integrate into the German society. They will accompany them, taking care of administrative tasks. So what's the advantage for the refugees of this program? So this is a government social admission program, and for refugees with the need of special protection. What they get is a 3-year residency permit with a prospect for a longer stay after 3 or 5 years, or 3 to 5 years. They will have the possibility or the prospect of reunification with their nuclear family members, so that they can be united. And a very important aspect of it is also the immediate access to the labor market, which is also accompanied by the possibility to learn the language, and which is a important vehicle to the integration process. And also they are entitled to social welfare benefits and health care in Germany, and also the integration courses and language courses, which are included in that. So what's the status quo right now in Germany for the NEST program? Since 2019, 139 refugees have been admitted to come, and there are 31 mentoring groups who are involved in this scheme. The people are coming mostly from Syria, South Sudan, Somalia, and Sudan. And COVID was a kind of stopped the program in the last years, and as well the elections which took place in 2001, because the government has to decide how many people will be admitted every year. So for 2022, 200 people will be admitted to the German NEST program. So the news we got last month in the conference in Germany was that this program, which is a pilot program, will be consolidated as of 2023. So the German government will fund the key actors to participate in it. And I will also give you a small input on the Archdiocese of Cologne. So we have 3 mentor groups who are taking care of 14 persons. So there are 4 families, and the last group arrived in the beginning of 2022. So a quick outlook on the structure of the German program. So we have basically two dimensions. One is the governmental dimension. The other one is the civil society, which we call civil society contact points. We have the Federal Ministry of Interior. We have the Federal Government Commission of Migration, Refugees and Integration, and we have the Federal Office for Migration and Refugees. They are doing the vetting, and they are communicating with the UNHCR to identify the families in the refugee camps and to get them over. So what the civil society does is they are the partner for the sponsors and the mentors. They will accompany them through the whole process of applying to help resettle the people. So my role, or the role of the Archdiocese of Cologne, is that the Archdiocese of Cologne they started a fund which was called the New Neighbors Campaign. It was not just a fund, it's a whole program, a whole set of programs, and we are helping with approximately 80,000 euros the mentoring groups to finance the accommodations. We also have a big net of counseling centers in the realm of accommodation, labor market integration and health, so the refugees or the mentoring groups, they can go there and get counseling if needed. And also another part is the work with the Share Network, to exchange on a European level the knowledge we gathered, and also to find new mentor groups in Cologne, or in the Archdiocese of Cologne.
Thank you very much, Stefan. Interesting what you pointed out, the key role that the civil society contact points play. They're kind of like intermediary organizations, and to support the volunteer groups, and also to finance some of the housing for the groups, because in Germany, volunteers have a big financial requirement. Unlike in Spain, they have to find housing, pay for rent up front for 2 years, I believe. And the financial requirements are quite high, so they often, from what I understand, get a lot of support from the church, for example, from Caritas, from the Diaconie in Germany. And in the case of Stephanie, who works for the Archdiocese of Cologne, they also provide a lot of support for housing through the New Neighbors campaign. So now we're going to show a quick video from Steven Neher, from the mayor of Rottenburg, and he will explain how the municipality has supported the financing of housing for the group that they support in the municipality of Rottenburg. Could you play the video, please?
Ja, viele Grüße aus Rottenburg am Neckar. Gerne erzählen wir Ihnen ein bisschen was über
Sorry,
das
can you play it with the
Nest,
subtitles?
Neustadt und Team, das wir in Rottenburg in guter Weise anwenden können. Ich glaube, es ist eine Möglichkeit, zusätzlich zu den über die Verteilschlüssel der Bundesrepublik Deutschland zugeteilte Flüchtlinge in eine Kommune aufzunehmen, wenn die Bereitschaft in der Kommune und in der Zivilgesellschaft dazu besteht. In Rottenburg haben sich sehr, sehr viele.
Sure, why they appear? Do they appear at the top? I don't see them here. No?
Maybe if we use the link through YouTube, there we can see the subtitles.
Yeah, instead of, because I think if you downloaded the video, maybe it doesn't, the subtitles don't show, but if you can play it from the link. So maybe while you do that, I'm going to go on to the next question, and then maybe when they get that sorted out, we'll play the video. So my idea to show the video was to introduce the involvement of the local authorities in community sponsorship. There we go. Perfect.
Erzählen wir Ihnen ein bisschen was über das Programm Nest, Neustadt im Team, das wir in Rottenburg in guter Weise anwenden können. Ich glaube, es ist eine Möglichkeit, zusätzlich zu den über die Verteilschlüssel der Bundesrepublik Deutschland zugeteilte Flüchtlinge in eine Kommune aufzunehmen, wenn die Bereitschaft in der Kommune und in der Zivilgesellschaft dazu besteht. In Rottenburg haben sich sehr, sehr viele Freiwillige gemeldet, die uns unterstützen in der Integrationsarbeit, in der Flüchtlingsarbeit und darüber hinaus bereit sind, zusätzlich Flüchtlinge mit aufzunehmen. Eine Initiatorengruppe aus der evangelischen Kirchengemeinde heraus hat sich dem Programm Nest angenommen und sich verpflichtet, über 2 Jahre hinweg die ehrenamtlichen Arbeiten zu koordinieren. Ich glaube, es ist aber dringend notwendig, dass die Kommune, eine Gemeinde, eine Stadtverwaltung dahinter steht, denn es ist unseres Erachtens nicht hilfreich, die Ehrenamtlichen auch noch zu finanziellen Leistungen zu verpflichten. So haben wir als Stadt Rottenburg und der Gemeinderat sich bereit erklärt, die Mietkosten komplett zu übernehmen, sodass für die ehrenamtlich Engagierten keine zusätzlichen finanziellen Belastungen oder Kosten entstehen. Ich glaube, es ist schon ein Riesenmehrwert, wenn Menschen sich über so eine lange Zeit bereit erklären, in direktem Kontakt mit einer Flüchtlingsfamilie die ehrenamtlichen Unterstützungsarbeiten zu leisten. Also wir laden viele Kommunen ein, sich bei den Zusatzprogrammen zu beteiligen. Helfen Sie mit, als kommunale Verwaltung die Ehrenamtlichen zu unterstützen, immer ansprechbar zu sein, Supervision anzubieten und vor allem ganz wichtig, wenn gewisse Krankheitsbilder, traumatische Fluchterfahrungen im Hintergrund stehen, die Ehrenamtlichen nicht alleine lassen, sondern mit Hilfsorganisationen oder medizinischem Fachpersonal auch hier unterstützend tätig zu sein. In Rottenburg hat es sich bewährt. Wir würden uns freuen, wenn noch viele Kommunen sich auch am Nest beteiligen.
So with that introduction to local authority engagement, I'm going to start the second round of questions, and I will turn to José first. So José, ¿podrías comentar cuáles son las ventajas y desventajas de coordinar el programa de Patrocinio Comunitario a nivel regional. Y si puedes comentar, por ejemplo, el impacto de la coordinación regional en la hora de buscar y movilizar patrocinadores voluntarios, el impacto de la coordinación regional sobre la financiación, el alojamiento, el apoyo que se brinda a los patrocinadores voluntarios. Y la segunda parte es cómo colaboran con las autoridades y municipios locales para dar apoyo a los patrocinadores voluntarios y refugiados.
Gracias. Bueno, pues por nuestra parte yo creo que la coordinación regional tiene yo creo que varias ventajas. Una es la financiación, es decir, la seguridad, ¿no?, de que el gobierno regional aporta, ¿no?, todo un presupuesto que incluye todo. ¿Vale? Yo creo que también da una tranquilidad, ¿no?, porque hablábamos también, ¿no?, de esa, a veces en otros programas donde la parte, ¿no?, los grupos locales tienen que aportar dinero. En este caso, aquí la autoridad regional aporta, digamos, financieramente la experiencia. También una cuestión de equidad, ¿no? Por el tema de las diferentes informaciones y expectativas. Al final, que es la autoridad regional, en este caso, sea quien coordina, hace que haya que no siempre es igual del todo, ¿no?, pero que una similitud, ¿no?, en las experiencias, porque hay muchas comparaciones entre las familias, están en contacto continuamente entre ellas, antes lo comentaba, ¿no?, también aquí, y por lo tanto también que haya una autoridad regional que fomente un poco, que establezca esa equidad o esas decisiones que sean más o menos similares para todas las familias, pensamos que puede ser también una ventaja, ¿no? Hay una visión global, yo creo que también es importante, ¿no?, de la experiencia. Esta coordinación regional nos permite, a través de las diferentes reuniones de seguimiento, compartir de manera continua las experiencias y aprender unas de otras, ¿no? Y eso es fundamental. Ahora aquí estamos compartiendo entre regiones, pero internamente también es importante también ese apoyo entre las diferentes experiencias. Yo no tengo claro, y es una duda, yo creo que no sé, que el gobierno regional, ¿no?, o que la coordinación implique una facilidad de los trámites administrativos, y esto creo que también es una cosa a mejorar. Las luchas diarias, sobre todo los primeros meses, para todos los trámites administrativos, no somos capaces ni siquiera tampoco la propia administración de intentar aligerar esa angustia y bueno, no sé si a veces incluso podríamos perjudicar, no lo sé, pero yo no lo vería ninguna ventaja ni con inconveniente, sino con algo a mejorar en general, ¿no? Comentabas también el tema de la vivienda. Yo ahí lo he comentado antes, yo creo que intentaríamos, yo creo que el alcalde lo ha dicho, ¿no?, que sean los ayuntamientos quienes se hagan cargo de esto. Tienen una cercanía mayor, suelen tener más parque público de vivienda, tienen más posibilidad de buscar vivienda que las autoridades regionales. Yo creo que ahí es una desventaja. Es decir, nosotros estamos muy lejos de Calpe o estamos muy lejos de Almasora y no conocemos muchas veces ese día a día, esas cuestiones, sobre todo de la vivienda. Creo que es fundamental el resolver la cuestión de la vivienda. Y ahí la importancia y la necesidad de la coordinación con las autoridades locales. En nuestro caso sí que hicimos una tarea inicial de informar que esta experiencia se iba a desarrollar en su municipio, pero ha habido una falta de seguimiento por nuestra parte, ¿no? En general, ¿no? Y sí es verdad que, como decía antes, en los casos de municipios más pequeños esa coordinación se ha dado de forma natural, porque las entidades gestoras tienen ya la experiencia de trabajar con los servicios sociales, con los servicios educativos, con el día a día de los ayuntamientos, cuando son medianos o pequeños, y en las ciudades grandes pues se ha perdido esa conexión, ¿no? Yo, por último, es decir, lo que puede ser también una ventaja, ¿no?, de esa parte de compartir, yo creo que hay una desventaja, y es que la sostenibilidad de que la administración regional pueda dedicar tanto tiempo a un proyecto como este, ¿no? Yo creo que lo hemos hecho de muy buen grado, Creo que sí, es una experiencia, está siendo una experiencia fantástica para conocer cómo puede funcionar, pero creo que tampoco es sostenible a largo plazo los recursos no económicos, que también hay que escalarlos, pero de recursos humanos dedicados por la Administración a hacer un seguimiento tan cercano de un proyecto como este, ¿no? Yo creo que también eso habría que en el futuro pues replantear. Ahora es una ventaja, pero no es una ventaja que se pueda mantener en el tiempo seguramente, y eso es algo a pensarlo. Y yo creo que también por el tema de los ayuntamientos, aunque se ha dado de forma natural, creo que también el aprendizaje del idioma se puede mejorar mucho con la implicación de los ayuntamientos, con una mayor implicación de los ayuntamientos, que suelen tener más recursos propios o subvencionados para el aprendizaje de idiomas para personas de origen migrante. Y bueno, son algunas, ¿no?, de las cuestiones que podemos compartir, ¿no?, en cuanto a nuestra experiencia.
Perfecto, muchas gracias. Noté muchas cosas que dijiste muy interesantes sobre la mayor implicación de los ayuntamientos en el asunto de vivienda, en el financiamiento de vivienda, en todo lo que tiene que ver con el lenguaje, el aprendizaje del lenguaje, la educación, y también la coordinación regional y cómo eso ha ayudado a compartir experiencias, es algo que vamos a volver después. So now I will turn to Susanna. So same question for you. So what are the advantages and disadvantages of coordinating a community sponsorship program in the UK on a regional basis? And second part to that question is, how do you collaborate with local authorities to support volunteer groups and sponsor refugees? What are the challenges? What are the opportunities?
Thank you. So where we live, where we're based, refugee resettlement didn't exist. Like in 2016, no one knew any refugees where we lived. So we lobbied the council for a long time to change that situation, and eventually we won. And unbeknown to us, it was then front page of the local papers, and it didn't go down very well. It was a bit of a shock to the community, I think. But anyway, they did finally agree to the community sponsorship programme, and that was the only one they agreed to at that time. So it started with one family in each district, North Devon and Torridge, and now we're at 3 families in Torridge and 8 in North Devon. The positives about the fact it didn't exist before is that they are quite open to us teaching and guiding, and they're listening to us, and we can kind of create the structure that we feel that works, and they tend to support us, which is great. But as you can imagine, in a very white rural community, there are a number of challenges other than just writing our own policies. But some of the really big advantages of working regionally, we're big fans of kind of regional sponsorship, is that local people know their local area, right? They're strong in their knowledge of where things are, where to go for things, and also the relationships, like who do you talk to when you have this problem or that problem. From the principal sponsor down to sort of the most uncommitted member of the sponsorship group, all of us live in the same place. So therefore, we're able to attend meetings in person. We can be present at fundraising events and really support the groups that we work with. We can have personal relationships with landlords. Occasionally landlords will come to us as a principal sponsor and say, what's this all about? Who are you? Why are these people asking me for a house? And then we can then build that trust with them and create that relationship. And they know exactly where we live, so they know that they can come to us if there's a problem, which reassures them. There's also a really, as a principal sponsor, often you can be quite removed if you're managing a number of groups, but it's just the most amazing opportunity to be able to be part of the welcomed families' lives. So I have the privilege of knowing all the people we've welcomed. I know, what they love doing at school or what their aspirations are for work, and that's a real honour. The other thing is, because since the beginning, we've worked with the same local authorities in the 2 different districts, and so that relationship has grown and developed, and for better or for worse, they know we're committed and we know how to get hold of them. So actually there's built over the years this mutual respect and mutual trust, especially our side of things. They feel that they can trust us, which is really, really important. And every time we go to them with another, we need this approval letter, they know us. So it's normally a lot quicker than it would be if we were just a strange organisation to them from a different part of the geography of the UK. Because we work regionally, there's real continuity of care. So what we did with our first group, we pretty much still do now, like 5 or 6 years down the line. We've learnt lessons, obviously, and we've tweaked what we do, but we're the same people with the same message and the same enthusiasm. And so it tends to work, because when groups talk to groups, they're like, oh, I'm hearing the same story. This is a really positive thing. The other thing is, as you grow, as we've grown, we've been able to create peer support groups. So if you're responsible for education in Combe Martin and you're responsible for education in Appledore, we can pair up these two volunteers to meet and talk and offer each other support. And we created, as we grew, we created a newsletter community. So we involve everyone that's been welcomed to Northern Devon into our newsletter community group. So everyone is aware of what events are coming up, dates for the diary. We celebrate things like school achievements together as a community. It wasn't Christmas, because we obviously don't force everyone to celebrate Christmas when they don't, but it was in December. We had like an awards and dancing night, and it was all around Syrian dancing, Syrian food, and we did some joke awards for the families and for the volunteers, and it was such a community building experience. The massive difference I've noticed, and it's really interesting because this is a recent realisation, is the difference between the way we work with the local authority for the community sponsorship scheme to the way that we work with the local authority for the Homes for Ukraine scheme, which is the name of the UK scheme for helping to support housing for Ukrainians. With the community sponsorship scheme, everything from the house to getting support to finding English lessons, we've always done it entirely in the private sector. We've always found it through friends, or, oh, we've heard about this person that teaches English, we'll get them involved with that person. And that's how we've always worked, like our privatised network of how we do things. And since we've worked for Homes for Ukraine, and we're actually for the first time being paid for our work, actually not yet, we've been waiting 3 months, but it's coming, I think, we're actually plugged into, suddenly, a whole load of statutory services that I didn't even know existed, and getting a lot of stuff brought to our door. That's for discussion. In terms of recruitment, working regionally, it's just so much easier. So we work with a model whereby when a group feels like they're in their height of their excitement, we then go to the village or the town next door and we just write a Facebook post, because everyone where we live uses Facebook, and we just say, we are bringing a refugee family to this town, who would like to help? And at the same time, we get all of the group who are really excited in the next door town or village to email all their friends or go and meet them for coffee and start spreading the word. Another family is coming. Well, this family isn't like an actual family yet, but by speaking it, it happens. And then we create another support group in the next door area. And so we really use this method for recruitment. And there's also, we're working with Khadija, who is my Syrian colleague. She's known and she's liked, and she's such an amazing advocate that actually people meet her and they're like, oh, and she tells them a bit about their story, and then that also brings new volunteers on board. And just the way that events work, because we fundraise for everything, we spend a year doing events and raising money. So actually through social media adverts and posters up in village halls, people hear that about the scheme. Okay, I'm going to cut to the chase. I'm being given the nod. Housing. Okay, actually it's worth saying there's no funding for the government for any part of this work, so we have to raise all our own money, and we have to raise £9,000 to do that. As a foundation, we don't charge people for our support, but we're very unusual in that respect. And lastly, it is with the responsibility of each sponsor group to find housing in the private sector. We're not allowed to use the local authority housing and interfere with them, which creates its own challenges, unless you're under Homes for Ukraine scheme, in which case they will help you if you're homeless.
Excellent. Thank you, Susanna. You're very concise. Interesting how you mentioned that the Homes for Ukraine scheme, where you have a lot more involvement of local authorities, opened up the foundation to a lot more services that you weren't aware of and support. And I also like that you talked about how regional coordination has allowed you to build this kind of peer support groups and really helped in the recruitment of volunteer sponsors. That was very interesting. And to build personal relationships with landlords. So now I'm going to turn over to Rory from IRC. Rory, so same question to you. So what are some of the advantages, disadvantages of coordinating sponsorship regionally in Ireland and working through this regional support organization model? And then also just talk a little bit about how you collaborate with local authorities. I know you mentioned that there's not a lot of engagement of local authorities, but maybe you can talk about, what are some of the challenges in building those relationships.
So as I said, the way it's operated is slightly different than a lot of other jurisdictions. There's 4 regional support organisations. So we're based in Dublin, and we would look after the greater Dublin area, which is, I suppose, the heaviest concentrated population. Another organisation is based in Cork, which is the next big city, and then the third city is Limerick. So there's representation within those 3 cities. And then the Red Cross kind of covers some of the more rural locations around the country. So again, like Suzanne said, it's local knowledge makes a big difference, and knowing the different, I suppose, actors within the communities and how to leverage support with them. Working through the local authorities, it's the only kind of key piece of local authority play is the provision of rental support for the families. And that can be a very protracted and take a long time. So one of the big issues we're facing is where groups will fundraise, the money is spent paying rent for a period of time till the local authority or the government actually start paying the rent. One of the models we look at regards housing is trying to secure housing that isn't on the rental market as well. So looking to benevolent landlords or religious congregations or different agencies that would have housing that doesn't take away housing from a local need. That's, sometimes it's for the optics, but also that we're not taking away housing that's on the market, and also the cost of housing from the rental market is not affordable for a refugee family with the state supports that they get as well. So again, the fundraising is sometimes used to top up or fill the difference between the rent. Working with, I suppose, the local authorities, as Suzanne mentioned, she discovered there's a lot more stuff that local authorities actually provide than is sometimes apparent till you actually start looking for it. So again, I suppose the Ukraine response has shown up all the different actors and stakeholders that operate under local authorities that are now, I suppose, becoming aware that are accessible for people coming in through the relocation programs and community sponsorship. So it's, I suppose someone mentioned earlier, it's not to let a good crisis go to waste. It's trying to use and leverage those other supports that were not previously available to refugees, whether it was lack of knowledge or, again, reluctant to use the word structural racism as well. But suddenly there's a lot more things that are apparent and available for refugees through the local authorities. So it's now trying to access them and to get groups to understand what's available for them out there when they're looking for extra supports for families that they are supporting.
Excellent, thank you, Rory. Interesting that you had similar observations to what Susanna was talking about. So just as I'm aware of time, and I know some of you might have some questions, so I'm just going to pose a final question to all of you, and feel free to comment. What do you think is needed, or two-part question? What role do you think local authorities can play? And what do you think is needed to improve collaboration with regions and cities and engage them in community sponsorship? So maybe, that last question is more to the point. So what do you think is needed to improve collaboration with either regions or, in your case, cities, and engage them in community sponsorship? So feel free to take the mic. I will leave it open to you. José, ¿quieres ir? Okay.
Bien, pues sí, bueno, yo creo que ya hemos avanzado, que la implicación de los municipios debe ir de la mano de una, incluso igual de una derivación de responsabilidades en algunos aspectos hacia los municipios a la hora de coordinar los grupos locales o los proyectos de patrocinio comunitario, porque conocen, como decía antes, mejor el terreno en el que están, ¿no? Y que la autoridad regional pueda tener esa coordinación más global de un programa que también tiene que mirar hacia el futuro de su sostenibilidad a la hora de establecer pues, cuántas familias se pueden acoger, cuántos equipos se necesitan y económicamente eso sí es viable, sobre todo si tiene que ser comparable con otros procesos, como se comentaba antes, ¿no? de acogida, ¿no? Entonces yo creo que ahí sí que tenemos una vía de mejora con los municipios y sobre todo también con la elección de los mismos, ¿no? Y incluso hacer el match de las familias, no solo con los grupos locales, pero también con los municipios. Hay que conocer también si las familias vienen de un perfil más rural y por lo tanto no puedes meterlas seguramente en una ciudad muy grande. O sí, pero sabiéndolo, ¿no? Entonces saber qué tienes que trabajar con ellas o buscar que ellas conozcan dónde van, ¿no? Creo que también es importante la elección por parte de la familia y del grupo y el contacto con el grupo local, pero también de la tipología de los municipios, ¿no? Se ha hablado antes también, y yo quería insistir en el papel del Gobierno de España, del Ministerio, a la hora también de establecer cuál es el modelo al cual queremos llegar, ¿no? Con estas experiencias que estamos teniendo. Y yo introduciré una cuestión más que tiene que ver también tanto con el Gobierno regional como los municipales, que es el tema del empleo, que al final es el objetivo final, la autonomía, ¿no? En nuestro caso, de las 5 familias, en 4 de ellas, los 4 hombres, de madre y padre, están trabajando en estos momentos. Algunos de ellos ya desde el primer año, en un año empezaron a trabajar, ¿no? Sí que es verdad que ahí el éxito ha sido principalmente el grupo local, y es como se consiguen trabajos en muchos sitios, y es el boca a boca, y yo conozco a alguien, yo conozco una empresa, yo trabajo en una empresa que está buscando a alguien. Ahí yo creo que habría que mejorar a futuro, ¿no? Porque bueno, este José funciona en las familias, pero si un programa se amplía, pues igual esos contactos no sirven para más gente. Por lo tanto, la implicación de las autoridades o de los servicios de empleo y de ¿no? Tanto autonómicos como municipales sería, yo creo que más importante, con este éxito, pero con un éxito que igual no es exportable a otras situaciones, ¿no? Y una dificultad, en todo caso, en esa posible mejora, y es que cuanto más actores implicas, más difícil es coordinarse, ¿no? Y al final también poder convocar una reunión donde tengan que estar 3 entidades, 5 ayuntamientos, 3 departamentos de la región, más el Ministerio, más ACNUR, pues igual solo hay un día en todo el año donde se pueda reunir todo el mundo. Y eso dificulta también, ¿no? Es decir, es bonito incluir actores, pero también igual habría que rebajar o buscar otras fórmulas donde esa coordinación pues tenga otra distribución, ¿no? Pero bueno, por ahí iremos buscando soluciones y aprendizajes.
Gracias, José. Rory or Susanna?
From the Irish context, it's getting the local authorities to actually work together. As Porrick mentioned earlier on, they were the first group within their local authority to seek the approval of housing support and rental support for the families. Once that happened, it's then replicating that across all the other local authorities. So it's about getting them up to speed and understanding and collaborating and working cohesively around it. So it's about sharing information and getting them to work together on this. Thank you.
Okay, I've just got 3
Susanna?
quick points. Yeah, so I would just say three things about collaboration. We always ensure that we talk well in public about our government and about our local authority, and no matter what we're feeling inside and no matter what private conversations we're having with the government or the local authority, we always try and make sure that publicly we are saying if they are doing good things for refugees, that's fantastic, keep doing it. And yeah, we've had to delete some of our social media posts. And being prepared to be a part of the solution when the government and local authorities are tackling problems. And I think we always try and come with practical solutions. That's our strength, I guess. So because that was picked up, we've actually been asked to be part of the government's core delivery strategic group for Homes for Ukraine, because they were seeing how much we were trying to help to tackle some of the problems and find solutions. And also the last point to make on this is if we can maintain the good spirit that we have between us all here in this conference and also stay really tight as a sector, then I think that individual governments will start to notice and more can be done.
Excellent. Thank you, Susanna. And with that very positive note, I am going to open it up for questions. I hope you will indulge me. If we have lots of questions, we might go over 5 minutes because we started about 10 minutes late. And it's a very interesting panel. And so I hope you have some questions for our panelists. Take advantage that you have them here. Pachi up there is passing the microphone around, so just raise your hand if you have any questions.
Mi pregunta va para las compañeras y compañeros del Reino Unido y de Irlanda, no tanto sobre colaboración interadministrativa, sino sobre el papel que pueden jugar, y se lo dirijo a ellos porque ya tienen varias experiencias, ¿vale? Varios años. Las personas que han sido beneficiarias y si se han integrado de alguna manera en los grupos voluntarios de apoyo, y sobre todo si pueden servir para ayudar a deshacer un problema evidente que se ha comentado aquí esta mañana, en la sesión anterior también, y es la gestión de las expectativas y la gestión de la información, ¿vale? De las expectativas de las familias que van a llegar y las expectativas de los grupos locales de voluntarios, y también la información por el funcionamiento de esos grupos de WhatsApp, de Facebook, de esas redes informales, que muchas veces por la desconfianza natural que los recién llegados tienen respecto a lo que les pueden decir autoridades, entidades, profesionales, parecen más creíbles, ¿no? Entonces, pensando en que seguramente de igual a igual, ¿vale? De familia beneficiaria del programa anterior a la familia que llega ahora, se pueda romper esta desconfianza o se pueda trasladar una información más creíble, si eso se ha utilizado, si se ha involucrado a las familias acogidas. Me imagino que no a todas, porque cada una tiene su proceso y habrá quien no quiera saber nada, pero también habrá quien sí, y si ha funcionado.
So thank you. Yeah, very good question. I'll start with using people who have been recipients of the programme. We would, but only when we feel that they have the capacity for that. Not that we're making judgments on it, but it's more that they're kind of ready to support. Like as Porrick had mentioned, the Syrians they welcomed are now helping support Ukrainians. We would do, like we've commissioned research at the moment, and we're using peer researchers, so the people that, one of the first couples that came through the programme are now interviewing others that have come through the programme to get an honest response from their experience and see where there's learning from that, and then to share that support among the newly arrived families so they feel that they have a voice, and that the idea of reciprocity, that they can be honest in their response as well, so that you're not, because they feel indebted to the groups or to the people that have helped them, they might not give a kind of very, I suppose, they give you the answers you think you want to hear. So yeah, definitely using peer support and peer learning is invaluable to it. And then getting, with interpreters and translators, we would always try and use people who've been through maybe the asylum process, who have a different experience, but also have a very good understanding of the experience that people are going through with community sponsorship, and again to manage their expectations around that and for them to fully understand where they're at.
And for us, I think it's that small and consistent approach seems to manage to iron out the level of comparison. So, for example, my colleague Khadija goes to every airport pickup. She talks to them as soon as they come to the house. We have a policy where we sit the family down, we tell them everything about who we are and what the scheme's about because of the difference in expectation, exactly that problem. And we've had really wildly different expectations come to us. But we just want to set it straight from the very beginning, exactly who the volunteers are, the fact they're volunteers, and what the nature of our care for them is. And I think probably we have repeated translators, like the same people, quite a lot. And so it's not exactly cookie cutter approach, but a large part of it is repeated. And that especially at the beginning, with setting up the first things we have to all do. And I think as a result, the families all feel like it's been fairly consistent in the way they've all been treated. So we actually don't have that very much. And just the second thing is that we always involve the latest welcomed family to be part of the new group. Even if they don't have English yet or anything, we want them to know that they're welcome, so they all feel like they have a voice and that they're part of our team. And I think that all really helps, because it's all like we're on this side looking at the problem and not looking at looking at each other. You know, that analogy, sitting on the same sofa looking that way. You know, we've got a new family coming. How do we all welcome them? It's a team approach, and it doesn't ever feel like them and us. In Devon, it doesn't.
Hola, muy buenas. Mi nombre es Isaac, yo soy de Camerún y formo parte de la Federación de Asociaciones de Migrantes de Vizcaya. Gracias por la invitación aquí hoy. Mi pregunta es la siguiente. Escuchando a todos los ponentes de ahora, si yo lo he entendido bien, vemos que todos los procesos de patrocinio son recién creados. Y si estamos hablando de 2016, de 2017, de 2019. Y yo me hago la pregunta de saber si los mecanismos gubernamentales no permitían antes de crear esos patrocinios, o es que no habían necesidades de crearlos antes. ¿Por qué hemos esperado a ver a un niño sirio en la playa por empezar con esto? Eso es mi pregunta.
Any other questions? We'll collect a few if there are others. No? Okay. Our panelists, would you like to take the question?
Thank you. Very good question. And it's a very valid question. It did take the sad visuals of Alan Kurdi washing up on a beach for Europe to respond to the Syrian issue, when, you know, prior to that we've had huge migration from other conflict zones, and it's, you know, you even see it in the disparity between the difference between how Ukrainians are being welcomed across Europe as opposed to people coming from sub-Saharan Africa and other jurisdictions as well. It's a policy issue. It's down to governments making decisions around that. It's unfortunately that, you know, if we were the decision makers, hopefully we would be a lot more generous. But it is down to state policy, and it is down to, I think, the Canadian government very much pushing the idea of community sponsorship that's been around for 20 odd years or 30 years at this stage, and slowly other countries taking it on as well. But it doesn't meet the need that's out there, unfortunately. So.
José?
Sí, bueno, efectivamente, bueno, en nuestro caso, es decir, la competencia de la acogida es del Gobierno de España, entonces es a través de esa iniciativa global, que creo que es del 2016, ¿no?, de extender el patrocinio, yo creo que cuando se empieza a trasladar a los gobiernos, entiendo que primero de los diferentes estados y después nos llega a los gobiernos regionales la posibilidad de desarrollar esas experiencias, pero es porque, bueno, hay una intención, entiendo, liderada por ACNUR también, y otros actores, para que se exploren, ¿no?, estas fórmulas de acogida, aunque eso no quita que efectivamente, lo hemos visto ahora con la guerra de Ucrania, pasó en el 2015-2016 con esa foto famosa del niño, pero también pasó, por ejemplo, en la Guerra de los Balcanes en España, donde hubo un movimiento también muy grande de solidaridad similar al que ha ocurrido con el tema de Ucrania, y donde también se acogió a muchas familias en un proceso similar a lo que es el patrocinio comunitario, ¿no? Y como se está haciendo ahora en algunos casos con Ucrania. Pero efectivamente, bueno, pues yo creo que hay una conjunción en la que, bueno, ha habido una posibilidad de que en muchos sitios diferentes, a través de esa iniciativa, podamos estar desarrollando esas experiencias para ver la posibilidad de que esto, bueno, coja fuerza y se convierta en un proceso propio, con identidad propia, de una forma de acogida, pues, más comunitaria y, no sé, incluso humana, ¿no?
Muchas gracias. Pachi me acaba de decir que tenemos que cerrar el panel, so we have to close because lunch is waiting for us. But before we go, I just would like to give a big round of applause to our panelists for their excellent interventions.